Hey, how's it going? My name is Brett. This is Useful Aircraft. I've been putting off doing a video for way too long. Got too many people hounding me saying I had to show what I'm making. I'm a commercial pilot by trade, but a maker at heart. And during COVID, and shortly before that, I lost my medical for a little over a year. And so I was stuck in a garage and figured I had to do something to keep my mind out. So I got into building model airplanes. Kind of entered the business the wrong way around. I started off as a pilot, going through learning how to fly, worked the ramp, pumping fuel, flight instruct, and went out and then flew freight. And after that, ended up being a corporate guy. Got a pocket full of type ratings now, even managed to get into flying a little bit of helicopters here and there. But it wasn't until about 2019, I guess, that I started to think, let's build myself a little model airplane, something to keep a hand in the game while I was unable to go out and fly for real. So there's a couple evolutions of some of the other aircraft that I've designed and worked. Actually, the two, one in the middle and the one on the right there, those are both FPV flying a DJI system. That's the first system, and that's DJI system 2. But recently, with a change in legislations and introduction of the sub 250 rules and remote ID, I decided I need to make something that I could train folks on, and flew and met all the requirements of sub 250. The end result of that is this airplane, basically. And I call it the Porter. It's a bit of an homage to the Pilatus Porter. Maybe throwing a little Cessna 210 in there just because I'm a fan of those. Had one of those for about 16 years. But it's it's all built out of foam board. It's a very simple design. The wing is actually a KFM aerofoil. However, I've inverted it, and if you notice, there's some tapering. The small circles that you can see on the wing, pointing to one there, those are your marks for center of gravity. These outer holes are index marks, and those are actually where I've engineered a couple of Nerf dart release mechanisms that fit into there. The airplane flies well. It's a conventional trainer. I'll show you some flight video of that here shortly. But it's got a straight wing brake to it. It's pretty traditional in terms of everything. Obviously, it's ailerons, elevator. You got a pair of servos in there. There is no rudder input. The only materials other than foam board, got a couple of popsicle sticks that I use for reinforcement back on the tail. 3D printed elements with regards to the control horns. I'll show you some of those. This is what those guys look like, basically. And motor mounts 3D printed. Everything I've just run straight out of PLA. And I live in Phoenix. A lot of guys will bitch about the heat and say that it'll never keep up with it and the PLA will melt. And I just haven't found that true. I've flown many summers with these things, and I've run them pretty hard, especially some with the bigger motors, and in particular the FPV airplanes. And I've just had no issues with that. Build-wise, I'll go over some of the materials on this. You can see into the avionics bay in there. It's a bit of a wiring mess right now. The motor itself, this is an Amazon special. You buy them in 4-packs. They're quad motors. It's a 1407 3500 kV. It's powered by a 20 amp ESC. I don't know, the brand name Cyclone. It's a ESC without a BEC. The reason I do that, these are some of the lighter quad ESCs. They require a good amount of airflow. You can see it's tiny. They require a good amount of airflow to stay cool, but my firewall's got a good number of holes going through it. You can probably see that. And there's ventilation built in pretty much everywhere. So I run this thing hot and hard through the summertime, haven't had any problem. I do run a separate BEC. It does add a little bit to the wiring. Folks ask why I run a separate BEC, and the reason being is the weight savings versus a conventional ESC. I don't know. This is a beat up old 20 amp, and that giant heat sink in there. Okay, that's a 30 amp. I lied. That heat sink in there would throw this airplane well over the 250 grams. So in running the quad style ESC, I can keep the weight down. The receiver, that's a Beta FPV ELRS receiver, PWM. That way I don't have to deal with flight controller or anything else. I want to keep this as simple as possible. The servos are just, they're no-name SG90 servos. Buy those in bulk off Amazon. The props are these, I don't know, these are the Flash 3052-3 props. Same thing, I buy these either Amazon or a handful of sources online. The batteries that I'm running, these are 3S. It's a 850 milliamp hour with an XT30 connector. It is with this battery, the all-up weight will come out at 245 grams. If you chose to run a smaller battery, for example, there is a 600 milliamp hour battery, it'll give you a little bit more wiggle room to play with to keep to the sub 250 requirement. But all up with a clean build, and this is just hot glue together. There's absolutely no magic to this. You're talking about 245 grams. Some of the things I've done for fun, you know, I call this useful aircraft. And the reason being is you know, there's a lot of airplanes out there that look like other airplanes, but don't particularly form, I don't know, they don't function well. They run into challenges, you know, because aerodynamics that when applied to a large scale, as you scale it down to smaller models, perhaps brings with it some bad tendencies. What I wanted to play with this, though, is I wanted to have something that folks could start off with as a training airplane and then move from there and get into some of the more interesting or more advanced topics. So, for example, some of the interesting things that I put onto this, these are leading edge slats. As you can see, they when the wing is at a high angle of attack, air will flow through this slot and increase your airflow over the ailerons. It'll give you better low speed handling. However, bear in mind, it will not necessarily change your stall speed. However, that stall, as you approach it, you will have more aileron control. But when you do brake, it is it's a bit of a digital event. Now, again, if you have altitude, the recovery for this is conventional. The nose will come down, you'll build up airspeed, regain your airflow over the wing, and you'll be in good shape. These require no adhesive. They simply press onto the wing, give you a chance to experiment with it. Fuck. Let's for a second pretend the video didn't just stop because my memory card was full. Anyway, get right back to it. So we're talking about leading edge slats. These guys, it's the slot that provides the airflow in high angles of attack. Air goes through there, provides better roll control as you approach the stall. Again, you don't really get anything for free. It actually is increasing probably your stall speed because you're increasing your all-up weight. But it does change the handling characteristics of the airplane. I actually rather enjoy flying the airplane with the leading edge slats just as a different feel. You can really get into the high angle of attack, high power, tight turning radius, and have some fun. You can fly it within a cul-de-sac if you're comfortable, but it is you know, you're tickling the dragon's tail there. You got a little bit of a challenge because when it breaks, you're absolutely coming down. So the old 3 mistakes high. So that's the leading edge slats. Another mod. These are Boundary Layer Energizers. Let's see if it'll focus. There you go. Vortex Generators. 20 series Learjets had these G2s, and I think some of the 3s had them. It was something else I wanted to try. They work on sort of a similar idea. What they do is they cause little boundary layer vortices to extend, you know, aft over the wing. Now on jets, they're there for sometimes different reasons. But you'll also see them, for example, there's a couple of STOL modifications for airplanes like the 182 and even Hell Piper Cubs. It was the old Pacific Flyer magazine back in the day said, you know, what is it? You can put the VGs on the Piper Cub, but then you're flying at 21 miles an hour. And what the hell are you doing in an airplane at 21 miles an hour? Sounds like helicopter speeds. But these, again, a slightly different feel, similar sort of idea. It provides additional airflow adherence, I guess. You're hoping to energize that boundary layer and better adhere it to the upper surface of the wing. So in this particular case, at higher angles of attack, it delays the onset of stall. Now, at the same time, you push it, absolutely it's there. The wing will come unglued and the nose will fall, and you'll have to go through your recovery at that point. So it's just another interesting tool in your toolbox to play with these and figure out what you enjoy. Now, the airplane can also hold a camera. I'll include some video of this. This is one of the old Runcams, if you remember those. I built a little harness for that. You take the avionics tray off. This basically slips over the leading edge, just like you can see there. And then same thing, you go ahead and put the cover back on. Snug fit, but there you go. And you're in business. You can record your flights. With any of these additions, unless you had a significantly sized, smaller battery, and I don't think there's any way you could do it with this, but you would not meet the sub 250 requirements. So you're either looking at flying in FRIAs or remote ID, or figuring out somewhere else you want to be. So I'll go ahead and pull this off. The camera works well. It makes recording the flights kind of interesting. Some folks enjoy that. I'm trying to figure out this whole video business. I'm not sure if I enjoy it or not. These are the ones that people love. So these are, I designed these little 3D printed mount for the wing. You can see that little bump sticking up on the undersurface. That indexes with these rectangular marks here and here. So basically you take this and you slide it in, and when it hits the right place on the wing, it latches in. Do the same on the other side. You get the picture. The servo wire, if you can see there, there's a pass-through. There's the pass-through. I don't know if you can get in and see that, but there's a pass-through. So this is designed to be installed after you've assembled the airplane. And same thing, I had them on this morning. I was out there shooting a video. I'll show it to you here in a little bit. And then you can take them off when you're done. They're loads of fun. People love this. We have had kids that have been interested and either take a couple hula hoops and throw them out there, have people write their names on the dart and try and get the, drop the dart inside the hula hoop. Try it from a low altitude, try it from a high altitude. It's a very different game. It's harder than you think. Sometimes another buddy of mine will sit at opposite ends of a field and try and bomb each other. And again, same thing. It's a little bit more challenging than you think. But that's basically it. The airplane is, it's easy to fly. It's conventional. It's quiet. It's, as long as you don't put a whistle on it, which my daughter asked me to do. So that's a 3D printed whistle. And as soon as I finish shooting this video, that's coming off. The whistle's very effective. It's one of those sounds that it's hard to tell exactly where it's coming from. But I don't necessarily care for it. But anyway, there it is. It does give you a little bit of a, I don't know, old dive bomby sound. On an 850, if you're easy on the throttle, living somewhere in the 50 to 70% range, you're not, heavy into gassing it, not doing a lot of vertical or acro or whatnot. I approach flight times at 10 minutes. But again, that's just cruisy, swoopy, figure 8 flights, which is ideal for, getting kids figuring out, learning how to fly these things. If you want to sit there and be playing and doing a lot of acro, or if you're doing multiple bombing runs and you're landing every other leg and you're, reloading and sending it back up there, you got to keep an eye on the battery life because obviously it draws a little bit more. Another thought, a lot of people will say this is a tiny little prop. When I first started flying it, I was flying it with 50-40s and subsequently 50-30 propellers, a 5-inch propeller, which some folks think looks a little bit more scale on the airplane. With the 2-bladed propeller, if you ran it at full throttle all the time, you're going to burn up your motor. It just gets too hot, especially here in Phoenix, where outside air temperatures well into the triple digits. The tiny little 3-blade, this you can pretty much run it pretty hard all day and you'll do just fine. But there's an interesting thing in the RC community that folks say, oh, you're overpropped because you can't run all day at 100%. Speaking as a full-scale pilot, that's foreign to me. We have takeoff power settings and power limitations. We can't simply firewall the throttle and leave it there all day. And I don't care if you're talking in a piston or a turboprop or a jet. That's just not something that computed into my brain when I came from it. The idea that, yeah, we could put a propeller that everybody else would say is oversized and you had to be aware that you can't run high throttle settings continuously, that made sense to me. And again, if you were flying this all day long at, say, between 30, 40, 50% type thing, you'd have flight times 10 plus minutes. But again, if you punched it and started going vertical, you'd be 5 seconds into going vertical and all of a sudden that motor just cooked off. So it's something to consider, but I do think the smaller motor, the smaller propeller is far more robust. It does a great job in keeping the airplane manageable and comfortable to fly. It's got plenty of power to climb. I've had it with all sorts of stuff, you know, the Nerf darts hanging out, the camera and all that, and flies just fine. Anyway, there's the goddamn phone. I gotta take this. Hey, sorry about that. Had a phone call I couldn't get out of. Anyway, I want to transition and show you some flying video now. I think that's what you're here for. First, I'm going to start off with the Runcam thumb being mounted on the top. I'll put the Runcam video on the bottom right corner of the screen as it's shooting at a lower resolution. And then I've got a stupid GoPro I'm sticking on my forehead like an idiot and flying around, keep an eye on it. But this way you can simultaneously see and get a feel for the aircraft. Understand with the Runcam on, your minimum flight speeds are increased somewhat significantly because as a proportion of the all-up weight of the aircraft, you're significantly adding to what would otherwise be a sub-250 airframe. And in doing so, that wing has got to generate more lift. So be prepared to see the airplanes flying a little quicker. After that, I'll give you some just regular line of sight flying. I don't really get too much into with the leading edges on. The reason being is that's a qualitative analysis. I mean, it's a feel that's somewhat hard to convey if you're not the one flying it first as a clean wing airplane and then experimenting between the Boundary Layer Energizers and the Leading Edge Slats. So I'll move on, show you some of the exciting bombing stuff, drop in some of the foam darts, and then afterwards wrap it up with flying the airplane, just watching it go around the pattern. The audio on this is hit or miss. I apologize for that. DaVinci Resolve has got a learning curve that's like hitting a brick wall for me, but I'm kind of enjoying that process. And then after that, we'll wrap it up, give you some closing thoughts. Enjoy. little gusty. Nice. So I think for the most part, that covers it. Showed you the airplane, shows you how it flies, showed you the things it does. I mean, again, it's made with readily available Home Depot parts, control rods, I suppose. Learn how to bend your own control rod, save yourself a stack. You know, it in its kit form, I pack it down to something small. This is one of them. I love it because this fits in a backpack and I take it with me when I travel. Everything, I can fly a full FPV setup, bring it with, build it in a hotel room, gives you something to do. And you know, I tell you, it's really cool when you get out there, some flying field you haven't been to. You know, there's a bit of pride in bringing something that you made. Even if it's a little jank and a little wonky at first, it seems like every time you crash it, as you repair it with a little bit of painter's tape or a little bit of hot glue, you'll find you're bringing the center of gravity forward, and eventually one day you'll end up with a beautiful flying airplane that just looks like hell. But it's all right. Then you go back and you make those adjustments and you build it in your final form and you end up with something you're really proud of. And that's something that is key to all this. It's the fact that you can recycle components. You can take things from your crashes, rip out the most expensive parts, the used electronics from, you know, I mean, any of the store-bought kits you've flown. And, you know, rather than throwing those things out, recycle them into something new. That's the point of these things. I've been lucky that I've been able to afford things like the laser, like a garage workshop. All of this is just in a single car garage. I mean, this is the amount of space that I have. I mean, you can see if you look over here, that's the garage door. That's a single car. It's tightly packed, but it works out well for me. I first got into this, you know, watching videos on YouTube, and we need more people that make. We need more people that create. You know, it was those YouTube videos that first got me interested in FPV and in RC stuff, and that led me down the road before I had the tools to do it, to maker spaces and hacker spaces. If you have a chance, if you need the resources, go check out your local maker space. Go check out the hacker spaces. Go find yourself, even the public libraries now. I'm starting to see a lot of public libraries as I travel around the country that have maker spaces with 3D printers and laser cutters and the stuff you need. We live in an amazing time. The components, the tools, and the tech is so inexpensive relative to where it was when we first started out. I mean, you know, these little radios for $60, you just can't beat it. It's amazing what it can do. You know, the number of channels that they support, and we're really lucky to enjoy that right now. So get out there and enjoy the hobby. Be nice to each other. I appreciate your time in watching this video. If you have an interest, leave me a question. UsefulAircraft.com. You know, I don't know where I'm going with this. Right now, I make them for friends. I make them for a couple of buddies that are teachers that run them for classes. But it's a small scale labor of love, I guess you could say. But if you have interest, feel free to reach out to me. If you got ideas for development, or if you want to see any of these other airplanes, do all the shit that makes YouTube happy, you know, or reach out to me on UsefulAircraft.com. You know, I believe the contact and the email's all there. Anyway, that's it. Hey, thanks for your time. Enjoy your day.